the county judge race is arguably the most important race on the ballot for our area. The reason for that is that many of us have been very frustrated with the lack of planning on the court in a variety of areas. And we have some choices here that give us hope that things like, things that bother people, like the fact that our appraisals are going through the roof again, and that we're stuck in traffic a lot. And that there are things going on with jails and whatever else that don't really reflect the character of the people who live in Montgomery County. So one of the issues that has been in the news, but has been overlooked by a lot of people, it's hard to follow things, has been the Joe Corley Jail and the Mental Health Center. And so tonight we're gonna have a presentation from Mark Bosma, who has been watching this, involved in it, and knows the details of it. And we'll share with you some of these details to explain what got him active in this election and why he deserves your support, and he's got our support. So please help me welcome County Judge candidate Mark Bosma. You may want to scoot up to see this presentation. There's a bunch of seats in the front. Come on up, y'all. See it right. Come on up.
I'm Mark Bosma, Montgomery County Judge, and I'm going to discuss a little bit about the mental health facility. I don't have a lot of time to go over both of them. It would take me 2 hours, really, and I'm supposed to probably knock this out in 10 minutes, what I've been told, so I can speak fast. When you do procurement in county government, there's regulations you need to follow. And some of the procurement processes are design bills. And the design bills have statutes that tell you how you're supposed to do things and what criteria is going to be in the RFP. And there's a proposal put out, qualifications only. This is real important. And when you do a proposal in government, you're only looking for qualifications. You don't take in any costs on the project. It's not a requirement. You don't ask for it. You're only looking for qualifications to make and to determine who you're going to hire for that. So design criteria package, a general description of work, and I'm just going to go over it because I know you all, the ones that decide to get close, can really see this. So some of the criteria you have to put in there is what the budget's going to be on the project. In this case, this budget was about, let's just say, $32 million for the census. You have to say what size of the square footage of the building was. It was 85,000 square feet is what we asked for. We have to come up with this criteria. The other thing you'll have to have is location. Those are some of the criteria you have to have in there. You had to do a survey. We had to do a survey early on, and this came from a proposal, one of the proposals that we looked at. And this is the structure here. And this is the mental health facility. And you can see these are wings here. And each wing accounts for 20 bed spaces. And this is a future wing. And this is kind of shows you here over there where the flood area is. And this is your high power lines. So this came in with one of the proposals. It's just a better picture of it. All right, Commissioner's Court. Once you put something out, the qualifications, then you have to bring it through. The recommendation has to be made in Commissioner's Court, and qualifications awarded. No contract at this time, strictly qualifications only. This was the number of vendors that put in. There were 8 of them that put in. So what you have here is a lot of contractors, and you have a developer. But that's the criteria. That's the bid form, or really they call it a bid form, but it's just a qualification form. Now, I'm going to test you. You were paying attention. What was the date on that? you just saw.
September 28th, 2009.
This says 9/30/2009, and it shows a price of $31 million with all broken down. And this was presented by a consultant to us. What did I tell you is you can't have pricing on an RFP. You'd have to go through the criteria. You got to wait till the contract to come in. When this was presented in Commissioner's Court by the purchasing agent at the time, it was asked to be deferred. Because when that contract came in, she didn't have time to read it. Walked in about 15 minutes before Commissioner's Court. And she asked me about it. She said, look, I haven't even had a chance to look at it. I want to defer this issue. I said, absolutely, do what you need to do. And in the audio, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, she deferred it. But the project was moved forward anyway by court members, some of the court members. So this talks about the number of beds, 5 20-bed wings, 100 beds, and 6 infirmary beds. In jail projects, you do not count the infirmary beds because they're not a place you spend the night, overnight, etc. So right there, it just talks about 100 beds, 6 infirmary. And what I rarely use myself, now I'll use some of the documents, but I don't use AIA forms because they're fill in the blank forms. And you want them to benefit you, the government, when you're working on a contract, and you don't want the contractor to get the benefit out of that. And so you have to watch them real close. This is a procedure that we've had in place for years about how you follow design-build projects. And these are the things I talked about. You got a budget, building size, construction materials, site constraints, detail of scope. These are just all the things you put together, you make sure that are out there. Now, county's been doing design builds. I think statute allowed us to start doing them since 2001. And in this case here, you can see the Vernon's Texas Codes annotated 2004. All right, so and Montgomery County has engaged in design-build projects since 2002. And I introduced them to the county once I saw the statute. This, the first is, what this says, and I'll just say it. It says there's an email between a developer and a consultant that we hired. And the consultant's telling the developer that the reason that we selected you is because at the time on the Joe Corley facility, and I'm moving back, is we weren't allowed to do design. County wasn't allowed to do design builds at that time frame. Now I told you we've been able to do them since 2002, and of course you know this project was 2006. And then down farther, I don't know if it's on this next screen or not. There we go. Let me read it to you. The developer. The 2 projects were handled differently. Coley facility, your contract was with Montgomery County Jail Financing Corporation, which was organized to take advantage of the ability to enter into a design-build contract with a developer. Now I'm going to tell you, we've done business with a developer in the past where they did a design-build financed, and we did a lease purchase back. We've had 2 of them that I'm aware of. And the second part down here says, the mental health facility, which is the one we're looking at now, your contract was with the county itself. By the time we decided to pursue this project, statutes had changed to allow the county to use design-build as a method of construction. But what did I tell you earlier? We've been doing them since 2002. This is just a list of timesheets that the consultant had turned in. Now these timesheets didn't get seen. Got seen by a couple people in the county, but I never saw these timesheets. And it talks about, through the timesheets, it basically talks about people working on the project prior to the purchasing department or anyone else getting copies of them for going out on the street. So in other words, there were people working ahead of time. Now I just showed you that there were 8 vendors that put in. All right, the luxury was that one of them was working with some people, the other 7 didn't have the same luxury. And I could go over all the timesheets, but it shows a lot of people who were working on the project. All I'm doing, well, what you see up there is what the consultant had put in, and it's just been put in larger so you can just read it. There's no question about that the consultant knew how design and build worked, because at one time that consultant was an auditor. But that consultant sat with our auditor and went over the process of design and build. So if they had any questions about how they work, they should have got with the procurement department. This just shows a list of the vendor that was selected, their timesheets, that they were actually working on the project well in advance of the statutes that required them. This is the letter to the Texas Department of Health Services guaranteeing that we're building 100 beds. This is just a backup showing the same document. We have a set of plans originally that showed 100 beds with 8 infirmary, and the county ended up basically with 94 beds, 6 infirmary. Down here at the bottom it talks about schedule of values, and you'll see that. I want to make something clear. There were no invoices on this project. Okay, that's okay. These were pay applications. And it's just a difference. The invoices went between the developer and all their subcontractors. We don't see that. This was pay application based on construction only, on percentage of work that was done. So what you have down here, it talks about schedule value, and when you do public works projects, they need to come out with labor and material. This just shows you a comparison of projects that we have done it that way in the past, and actually one was going on at the exact same time. So there's no question that those folks in the county, they know how they work, or did know how they work. This just gives you an idea how long it takes a project from qualifications to contract. On a job this size, it'd be a good 6 months if you're lucky to get it to contract, knowing what your costs are. And this down the bottom, I believe, it just shows you a copy of what it should look like, labor and materials. Because when you inspect a project, you need to know, when they say, oh, 50% done, you need to know if it's 50% of the product is there, labor-wise, how much they've done. Well, that's kind of how that one was. There was no labor and material breakdown on that. This just shows a breakdown of what the cost of the project really should have been. And you'll see it in more detail coming up. This is just something I had put together. It shows that on pay application number 3, that the fee by Alliance was $2.1 million. The architect's fee was $2.2 million, and this was all given to us by the vendor. Let's see, the construction cost, based on the numbers, there was $25 million. Then there was $1.2 million in there for FF&E, which is furniture, equipment, etc. And you had soils reporting $165,000. Total project $31,500,000. It just goes farther into running comparison. You have to get bonds on projects, and one of the things on this project here, you'll see the comparison, is the bonds determines how much the contract construction is. It doesn't include the architect's fee or any of the incidentals of that nature. So the total cost with using Alliance development was $31 million. Total cost without using Alliance development would have been $21 million. This is the architect's fee. This is what the architect showed Alliance Development, what their fee was. And the bottom there, it says $955,000. That was their fee to Alliance. It's not something we got to see because, once again, those were the invoices between them. That's what Hales Mills showed last, 21 million. The total actually ended up being 19,575,000. And this just shows part of a contract when something's deducted where the money should go back to the county. So it shows you that originally it was supposed to be 85,000 square feet, 100 beds total. Remember, I'm not counting the infirmary beds. And the appraisal of this facility was 78,764 with 94 beds total. The market value, and that market value of this facility was $22 million, and that was from an appraiser out of Chicago, independent appraiser came in. I'll go into a little more detail. Basically, we were told the cost of the project was $32 million. We were told that the architect was making 2.2. They actually made 995,000. We were told that the construction, based on the numbers, was about 25 million, and it was actually 19 million or so. So in reality, it was about, and the developer was making $2.5 million. But they really walked away with probably, in my estimate now, train a lot better than $500,000, but I'm going to say about $9.3 million. That's inclusive of their fee. And we didn't get to see a lot of that stuff because their invoices were between them and their subcontractors. The Joe Coley facility before this was a little bit different. But the key factor that you got to remember is there are procedures in place when it comes to design builds, right? And they just didn't quite follow them the way I would follow them. And Joe Coley, pretty much the same way. The fee for the developer was about 2.5. Same thing with the architect. The architect's contract with the developer was only 1.8 million, so about $750,000 was made off of that. And when we look at projects, and we make them break them all down for us. We want to see all your subcontractor numbers before we ever move on the project. So that's kind of a gist of it. I keep it in a good time. Okay. I'll address any questions if you like on that. Yes, sir, Jason.
Good question. Couple questions. In 2007, we took out a bond for the Joe Corley Detention Center. And since we've since sold that property, according to Susan Combs, that bond has not been paid off yet. Do you know when they plan on paying that bond off with the profit from that sale?
You're talking the Joe Coley facility?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, I know that we sold the facility.
Yep.
We sold the facility.
For profit.
Well, if you want to consider profit,
Yeah.
we don't calculate this.
Yeah. That's my follow-up question.
Okay. Your follow-up question is?
Well, my follow-up question is, we didn't take bonds out on this. We took 2 COs in 2010, right at 31 and some change million
That
dollars.
facility hasn't been sold yet.
No, for the mental health facility.
That's
They
what
took
I'm
out
talking
some COs.
Yeah.
One of them is almost 100% interest. I mean, we're paying 15.5 million interest on a $23 million bond. Do you know, are we getting payment from servicing this mental health facility that's paying these debts off? Or are they just putting that payment in the GR?
No, they're paying the debt on that. And they get about 15 million, is that right, JD? About 15 million a year from the state of Texas.
Have those payments already came in?
Do what?
Have they started to trickle in?
So the money comes in every year. When the state meets every 2 years, there's a 2-year budget comes in.
You get it
It's 15 million a year. All right, and then you have to pay the service provider, which is in this case GeoCare. And I don't know how much is left over on that.
The only reason why I ask is Susan Combs, the comptroller's office, hasn't shown an updated payment as of last week. None of those 3 bonds have been changed with the comptroller's office.
And you're talking about the jail?
Yeah, the
facility?
jail and the mental health facility.
Okay.
So the bonds are at their original amount when they were taken in 07 and 22.
Well, I think, what are we making off that, JD? $65 million?
Yeah.
65 million is what we sold it for? Any questions? Yes, sir.
Go through the dates in the facility, like you said, you had 8 vendors. qualified.
Okay.
Also, you said it takes 6 months from the time to start a project to be able to certify everything going on there. Yet in a matter of 2 days, I think the court, in a matter of days, they approved this project for this amount of money. And so obviously it was worked on way ahead of time, not normal procedure, and that's probably what it was.
Well, the proposals for qualification opened up on September 25th, 2009. It was, I guess, a Friday. And then Monday, the recommendation was made. And the recommendation was the purchasing agent was told who to recommend that. A lot of design and build projects, the qualifications, that's what they do. Well, I'll just say this. You know, what's a developer bring to the table? Money, land, you know, not in these cases, you know, we paid for that. But it was not until October 26th that they bring the contract back. Now on design builds, they can still have some of the plans ready, not have them all ready. But to have a full price like this, you have to be hustling that up with all your subcontractors because you're getting bids from them the whole time. So in order to do that, it's going to be tough to get that in 30 days. But about the third pay application, we saw there was some movement with a lot of the line items. And I figured out, I said, oh, they must have finally got all their final numbers done. Whatever price they give you, that's what they live with. And they're going to shop those numbers all the time to see if they can make a savings, that's fine. But that wasn't the case. I was wrong. It wasn't that they got their numbers finalized. It was basically they had gotten a credit back. And they were just moving money inside there. And that's the point of how important it is for labor and materials to be broke down, because you can't track it without it. And it was questioned. So.
Didn't you testify to Mr. Sport about how much money it was you were involved with the FBI on this case?
That's correct. And my calculation, the way I calculated it, would be 12 to 16 million, but that's only because I'm counting the money that Alliance Development made that we didn't need in the first place, in my opinion.
And Jay, can you comment on how much we've asked for you paid so far?
On both facilities combined, we had counties overcharged about 12 million. The vast majority of those on mental health, people have it backwards. It was like, it seemed to work pretty well, and it's like 2.5 million round numbers on Joe Corley. And it's like people get greedy or whatever you want to attribute it to. Hey, this worked pretty well, let's go do it again. And mental health treatment facility, it's about $10 million.
Yes, ma'am?
So who is Alliance Development?
Nobody anymore. No, they are a developer. They used to be a developer company, but I believe they're shut down now.
Yeah.
Where was their home office?
Vision Park, right here in down south.
Shenandoah.
Yeah.
And where are they at now?
Well, let's see. The developer who did well lives in a house in Hawaii that's pretty good size. You can see that. That's where he's at. I don't know where the rest
It's
of
a pretty
them
nice
are.
picture from the satellite.
Yeah, absolutely.
Normally, would the contract review committee have been involved in that?
Not in this case. The contract review committee doesn't really get into that detail. But what normally happens is we have a construction manager and we have other folks that will sit down with us and we look at it. And funny you asked that because probably a month earlier we actually sat down on another project that was being worked on. And all the details were done the way it should be. Okay, and that came through us, and that's the process. And so, but no, the contract review committee doesn't look at that type of stuff. Yes, Sandra?
There's one question I've never asked you after all these
There might be
months.
one answer you never get.
How many facilities has the county actually built and then sold that you know of? Because I can't think of not one that we've ever built and sold before. And I've been in the county since 1950. That's telling my age.
Well, I'm not going to say we've never sold any, but I can't remember any right now. It's Bill.
Yeah, it's a question for JD. At the first of the year, you took over the responsibility for the consultant after an intervening contentious period of time. Let's put it that way. Now, you've been doing this for about a quarter now within your office. How much of a strain has it been on your office to do it?
I mean, okay, since the contract with the consultant, Ms. Brazil, was terminated back, May or June? I mean, it's been 9 months, a number of months ago now.
Yeah.
We picked up in my office everything she was doing, and we didn't ask for any staff or anything, we just did it and had me noticed.
So it was absorbed within the department with no new staff and.
Almost everything was clerical, is what it was. You know, I mean, we have poured through her timesheets. They're very meticulous, very detailed timesheets, you know. Email this, get a copy of the agenda, take this over to here, do this.
Yeah.
A lot of just clerical things. Of course, her daughter's helping her on part of it at $50 an hour.
But I'm just saying, there was no reason for it ever to be outside of the county. Is that a reasonable statement?
I'm sorry, what's that?
There was no reason. She was doing this job for 6 years,
Right.
about 6 years. There, apparently, since you absorbed this so readily, other than maybe the first 6 months when she left, which was a training period, the other 5.5 years, there was no reason for it to be outside of the county. In your opinion, based on what we've seen.
Yeah, I don't know reason. After like the transit, in fact, if you look at her contract, which the contract was drafted and written by the consultant, not by the county attorney's office.
Yeah, I know.
And so she essentially was a contractor a day or two after she retired. And for the next 6 years, she was paid about $180,000 a year, round numbers.
So just remember, we started on this, gosh, how long did we start on this to get this reconsidered? And who voted against it going into and that should be used in campaigns because it was in all the papers. And so people who voted to keep her on for 6 years and spend $1 million when there was no need for, other than a brief training period, to transition it over, is just a total waste of money.
Well, we certainly had people in place that could handle all the construction work and we certainly didn't need to hire somebody from the outside to do what we're already capable of doing.
Yeah.
And I can't answer to all the other projects that she worked on, but certainly on the construction one, no question about that. So,
Is any procedure that change invoices when you go on the contract?
when you hire a contractor, they deal with their subcontractor. What we normally do on projects, if you're the contractor and you tell us this is your price, not a hard bid, but it's a design build, we ask you to provide, we want to see all your subcontractors' numbers when we're over the project, so we'll see them. Now, the thing we have to remember, the numbers might have looked good, but then when you realize the project really cost, and the mental health really cost $22 million in construction, not $26 million, you're not going to know that until after the fact you see certain paperwork, if you can see the paperwork. And we were able to see that paperwork.
Yeah, but the county doesn't have somebody to review this or see that?
Well, we have construction manager in my office when the projects are given to us to handle them, but if Commissioner's Court, who I work for, chooses to do something different and they manage it, and they hire consultants to do this management, then that's what happens. Yes, ma'am? Me?
What was the question?
What would keep this from happening again? I said me.
Yeah, but what would you do?
In the county attorney's office.
Amen. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think so. I just think it's about character, basically. It's about doing the right thing for the right reason. And the question is I never thought what people are doing. I never even thought that. I mean, even when I sat and visited the FBI, I said, I don't believe people do this, and they laughed. I said, it happens all the time. People do that, and I didn't believe that. So what happens, there are procedures in place, and we need to make sure they're followed. And when contracts come through Commissioner's Court, it's my responsibility as a county judge to make sure that everything's comfortable, everything was done right, and ask the questions. Right? And just don't assume they're done right. And I think that's it. But certainly with JD's office there, they look at everything, and that's very helpful. So that'll be the things that will stop it. This was just predetermined. They knew what they were doing. There's no question about it. And there's something about me that I think it should never be a statute of limitation. on a crime that's committed against the taxpayers in my mind, ever. Right? Because you need to have the opportunity to get your money back on the criminal side. Well,
Ask the question.
she asked about what the procedural roles are for the county auditor. County auditor's job is to look at the numbers and make sure that what's being signed off on matches up to the construction. You know, when the timesheets came in, the consultant's timesheets came in, that's not something we got to see. So you never knew that they were working on the project in advance. And I'm not sure who was paying attention to that. That's not something we see anyways. What else is there? Well, I think it's just the people that you elect to be in office that are going to do that. I mean, there's procedures in place, you have to follow them. Who would ever think that they were putting it together in advance? I mean, I don't know if they were what they were doing. It just didn't fall into their lap this way. You know, if someone tells you they're going to spend $31 million, you expect $31 million to go into the project and be worth it. And on paper, the size of it seemed that was the way it should have been. But it did, because I never even had a clue that the architect's fees were different than what they were until we found out that the project didn't cost what it cost. And all of a sudden, it started rolling in. And you say, oh, okay, I get it. So you instead of making 2.2, you only made 955,000. So that 1 million went into someone's pocket. On the other project, 2.5 million, it was really 1.8 million. That's $750,000 went in there. Right? But we're all believing that the project cost this much up front. There was no reason not to believe that. So, but the details, I'm telling you, that we were working on projects before, what our requirements are, I think it has to do with the people that are in charge and the people that make the decisions. And they're the ones that have to be responsible and pay attention to it. You can't sign off on a document and not pay attention to it and then come back and blame others. All right? You just can't do that. But that's what's going on. You know, I mean, I'm not going to do that. No question about it. And JD, he knows what I'm talking about that. You just have to be responsible for it.
You mentioned that you have some documents that are I'm wondering if you should
Meaning?
that maybe got through litigation.
No.
That's my question. What is the status of the that sign about something that?
Oh, here it is right here. Okay.
There's not.
I don't deal with the litigation at all. Okay, a lot of what I showed you, like the consultant's timesheets, you can make an open record request of those. Okay, and you can follow the trail yourself, where they go, who signed off on them, and you can look at that yourself. Real simple.
So no, but I'm asking, no civil or litigation.
I can't answer that question.
So my office is working on it until all this commissioners court. That's the only control commissioners court has over my office. It's over her screen, but it's nothing else. But when the county gets sued, or elected officials, the department head gets sued, which is like every week. We have good commissioners in an executive session. Hey, you guys have been sued, we need permission and funding to defend the suit. And sometimes the county sues people, but most of the time it's everybody suing our DA, suing our sheriff, suing our constables, suing our commissioners, suing our law enforcement. I mean, it's like everything. And so when we want to sue somebody, like in this case, we went to the commissioner's court and asked, we laid out a summary version of what we see the case being civil. And we don't have a statute of limitations problem on the civil side, like they did on the criminal side. And we walked out that day with a unanimous resolution signed by all four commissioners. And it just doesn't vote from the commercial side. And that resolution gives my office the full authority to pursue any and all claims. This is a public document, I'm not doing anything out there. Pursue any and all claims associated with construction of either of those facilities. And it doesn't say against who, that we wanted, where the chips fall. And so that's the blanket thing we have now. There's been one attempt so far by one commissioner to stop us from going against the former auditor, the consultant he's talking about, and the former commissioner. The two that were really overseeing this whole project. But that motion failed for a lack of a second. But we know full well that's still out there, and they would like to stop us And so we're still doing our work, so, yeah. Unless Commissioners Court, I mean, they could, heck, on the Monday agenda, they could withdraw our authority to go after.
So for right now, authority on the civil side, but I assume the statute is not on the criminal side?
Right.
And how long is that statute? This is in 2000.
Well, on a 2-year statute, I think it was.
On the misdemeanors,
Yeah.
most misdemeanors have a two-year statute limitation. And the feds, the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office did the initial investigation. It's typical federal government fashion. They took a long time, and they asked our local DA to stand down, let the feds do their thing. Then they didn't do anything and handed it over to the local DA. And by that time, so much time had passed. So there's clear misdemeanor criminal charges could have been brought, but statute of limitations had run at that time.
Thanks.
And if I can, let me correct what Jason said. I've never gone and looked at.
Well, so I shot at you.
I've never looked on the comptroller's website, but let me assure you, Joe Corley facility, I can't say it's long enough to which month, but 9 months ago or so, Joe Corley was sold for $65 million. Those bonds have been defeased or paid off. We handled all the paperwork in my office, where before it would have been handled outside. And we saved the county, our estimate, about $100,000 by us doing it internally, because they were paying Houston lawyers to do all this stuff, up to $850 an hour per lawyer. So we handled it all. We wanted the closing to be done locally, to keep all those closing costs locally. So the closing was handled by Old Republic Title Company, downtown Conroe. The county netted about $22 million out of it. The county has received that. The only little glitch for a couple of days in there is the auditor couldn't tell us, okay, where do you put the money? And so the bonds that have been paid off, the county got the $22 million, and as you all know, each commissioner took $1.5 million of that. So 6 of it went away right then, and the rest of it's, I think there was another some taken out. But everything has been sold and paid off and closed at a title company. And that's all been done. I don't know about Susan Combs' website, but
Yeah.
it's all been done.
I'll have to get clarification. It's showing as updated as of, a recent date. So it's the only reason why I caught it. Usually they update them in August, so that would have been about the time it was being sold. So I can understand why it would still be there, but it shows updated in April.
I'll have one of my guys look at it tomorrow and see, because I don't know why that would be, but it's definitely, bonds were paid off and everything.
Here's the deal, certainly trying to, and I don't know the status of selling the mental health facility. But if it cost you $32 million, maybe $33 million to build, and it get appraised for $22 million, and then you add the FF&E, so let's just call it $23 million, but you owe $38 million, who are you gonna sell it to?
Yeah.
I mean, really, who are you gonna sell it to? Nobody. So, yes, Julie?
Well, one thing, I just want to say again, the savings that you brought to the county, it's why we're so proud.
That's right.
That you were
That credit goes to BD Griffin, now, we're gonna stay good.
It goes to the whole
It's
office.
a great team. It's a wonderful team. Everyone that I hear talks about that. The county attorney's office is just a shining jewel on the county level.
Jim, you had a question?
Oh, yeah, what's the total indebtedness in Montgomery County due to bond elections and?
So the county's debt is $446 million, plus interest over $550 million, is that right, Jimbo?
Yeah, well, actual dollars, you can forecast interest and all that stuff too, but actually, it's about $446 million.
So,
Pre-interest.
Oh, absolutely.
Pre-interest, that's right. With
Yeah,
interest, it
that's
shows
what
us about $554 million is what it was a couple months ago.
what are the big expenditures that the county should be looking at as the new county judge's office?
Well, definitely, here's what I see as what's coming down the pike. With that fake debate that I didn't make, we were sitting in a jail meeting, and it was an all-day meeting. They were looking at either expanding the current facility, the jail facility, sheriff's department over there, or we're looking to build a new one. And to build a new one would probably run anywhere from $80 million to $100 million. So I think our best bet's going to be to try to maintain what we have and see where we can remodel inside that facility. That's a big expense in the county, big expense. The courts, we're down probably about 13,000 square feet in the downtown county. It's gonna squeeze down a little bit more after that. So 3 years ago, we had 50,000 square feet left. There's gonna be another issue that's gonna be coming up in the county. It's gonna be you hear a lot of talk about a courts building and what we're gonna do with that, and so that's just another expense there. And certainly transportation. There was an issue. I was at a debate the other day, and the moderator asked a question about 249, and that's a kind of toll road project that's being worked on with Harris County, Montgomery County, and TxDOT. And on the toll road authorities, which Montgomery County has one and certainly Harris County has one, you can hold what's called primacy. And primacy means that you have the right to build that facility yourself unless you choose to release it. So Harris County is bringing that project to Tomball to their Montgomery County line. And they have two projects. One's 113 million Harris County has, and they have another one's about 88 million to build. They're about 6.8 miles worth of work. Then the Montgomery County has, I don't know what the total mileage is, but they want to build, I say they want to build, my opponent wants to build 3.6 miles of road, which is about 131 million. And from there, still in Montgomery County to Grimes County, TxDOT has put a budget of 350-something million in. And my thoughts are the Aggie Expressway, right? It doesn't bother me. I went to San Luis State and I got a great road, 45, right to my college. I think that TxDOT needs to build that. We don't need to build that section. I think those monies would be better spent inside this county. Now that's a good project, and I'm not taking away from that project. I think it's an important project, but it's in a project that it's been on the books for 25 years. All right? So let TxDOT build it, and we shouldn't be sitting there. We should give up our primacy. This Grand Parkway, we had primacy in our section of Montgomery County, we gave it up. Let someone else build it. I don't think you can generate enough revenue off the toll to use that money to build other projects. Okay? Spend 130 million there, and you're not going to make that money back that quick. And they still have to decide when it goes to Grimes County how long it's going to take them to get it to Bryan College Station. And that may or may not happen. But I think that that's what we need to do. And that's the opinion I put out there, and I still stick by it. I think we're spent inside this county. We have a lot of issues in the county. We have a lot of issues on 45. We have a lot of issues down south. We have issues with a lot of roads, big roads that need repair. And we need to have a plan. And we don't have the plan I think we need to have. Yes, sir.
Can you explain a little bit about the toll? Do you want us to own that, or do you want to?
I don't want to own the toll.
Okay.
You know,
Can you tell us the difference of owning and not owning?
if you have a toll road authority, which Montgomery County has a toll road authority, you can build toll roads and you can own them, the toll road, and use that revenue, make the revenue off the people that pay as they go in there, and that's how you do that. And you know, that's what Harris County, they have HECRA, which is their toll road authority, and that's why they have so much money to build and do what they do. You know, my opinion, that this is a bedroom community. I don't know that people want toll roads going around this community. Now, I'm not opposed to toll roads if someone else builds them. And then if you want to drive on them, that's your choice. So I just really believe that the money is better spent inside this county at this time. And, you know, it's going to be hard enough for us, for the needs that we have out there, to come to the citizens and say, hey, we've got issues. This is what we want. And you have to look at how we manage your funds and say, yea or nay. And it's important. Because, you know, one of the issues to me is water issues. We all know that it's inevitable. And so to what extent we, the county, can work on water and be involved with other agencies, we need to do that. So there's a lot of things coming down as this county grows. And we know when Grand Parkway opens up, West County and East County are going to explode. And so we need to be prepared for that. But I just think transportation is going to be a major issue. Certainly down here, I mean, as soon as the economy got better, then all of a sudden the traffic congestion got worse. And so, I mean, it's just going to keep on going on. So we just have to look at how we're going to plan the dollars and how we're going to spend it. Yes, ma'am.
I'm a pretty simple girl, so I'm just going to double check this information. It looks as if we're talking about $10 million. I'm just going to use the word in my head, embezzlement out of this fund, and that's a misdemeanor?
Crazy, isn't it? Well,
I just wanted, I kept hearing you say misdemeanor, I'm like, $10 million misdemeanor?
one facility, the Joe Corey facility is the one that the feds really looked at because that's the federal inmates and what have you. And that was 2006. And so the statute of limitations on certain things. You know, it's hard for me to believe that. But basically, you know, we got a beautiful house in Hawaii, and we figured out what everybody in Montgomery County, how long it would take them to go ahead and stay for a week up in Hawaii. It'd be a long, long time, so, you know. But
Can Montgomery County somehow claim that property at all?
I'm going to talk to county attorneys about that. we might have to take a trip. Just kidding.
We also has a $2.5 million house.
Yeah,
What's the
exactly.
$5 million house?
Look, you know, there's no question in my mind that they knew what they were doing. There's no question at all. There's nothing I can do about that. At least it's stopped, and that's the important thing.
And this doesn't create a new precedent, it just wants to put us back to where we follow proper procedure.
Yeah, I think procedures have always been followed properly until these two projects. Just do it.
But the real teeth in what Jackie's asking about, yeah, it's a misdemeanor, but the actual dollars of the civil penalties are unlimited. You can recapture anything you can prove that was fraudulently lost.
Well, this week, our demand to the three different individuals was in total around $12 million. Now, the worst offender far and away is Jim Galloway, Alliance Development. Now, his lawyers tell us, we don't care what you do because we're just gonna file bankruptcy, and so give us, fight it out of bankruptcy for him. He's already transferred his $5 million home in Hawaii and put it in the name of his good friend.
Right.
Not his wife or ex-wife or any of that, it's a friend of his.
I mean, but I guess the thing is they're making provisions to try to beat that, but the real teeth of the whole thing of the civil penalties is the pocketbook, not that they're gonna spend the rest of their life in jail.
Right, yeah, they're not facing any,
Long time.
nobody's facing any jail
Had
time.
the statute not run out, those three guys that received the demand letters, there was felony crimes committed there. You could prove they knowingly embezzled.
Possibly.
The misdemeanors occurred to the commissioner's court that were facilitating them, correct?
I don't know if it was the court so much as it was the individuals themselves.
So the individuals that are in question with JD's current civil case would have been facing misdemeanor charge?
Well, one of the real things that happened is the 2-year statute is, like JD was talking about, it kind of got bounced back and forth, and one of the agents that was handling it ended up getting terminal cancer or whatever, and it kind of set out in La La Land, or he got cancer.
Not really, Jimbo. I know you hear, a lot of people hear that and what have you, but no. Basically, the feds were looking pretty hard at the Joe Corey. They didn't look at the mental health facility. It would have been nice if they released the DA on the mental health facility.
Right.
They didn't because that wasn't a federal one. But then when the Attorney General came in and looked at it, there was something there, but you know, they just chose not to take it, okay, at the time. And by the time it went through the court system, I guess that's what slowed the process down.
Okay.
So, Diane, you had a question?
Knowing how the former auditor was, I mean, I always thought she was very thorough. If she had been,
She almost was, wasn't she?
About 2 feet out the door.
yes, but when she was our county auditor, if she had still been our county auditor, wouldn't she have caught the discrepancies in the dates and the?
Absolutely.
So that, all of that is something that the auditor's office should have caught.
Well, I can only tell you this, that when someone signs off on the releases, it's a system that's in place. The commissioner at that time was signing the releases for that consultant, the ex-auditor, Linda. That process goes to the current county auditor review. Maybe it's no different than the Joe Coley and the mental health facility contracts. You sitting up there in the commissioner's court, either you looked at them or you didn't look at them, okay? Either way. But like I said, it'd be hard to figure things out when they told you we're building this and it costs this much, and you ended up building this. So, and you still paid that much, so, but yeah.
Any other
Anything
last
else?
questions?